Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan Cunningham, and I lead the Power Apps team here at Microsoft, which means I get to spend a lot of time talking about low code. And increasingly, those conversations are really not just about the technology behind low code. In fact, more and more, they're about everything else, about how we roll out low code to very large populations in our organizations, how we get people ready for it with skills and capabilities, how we scale it to make a big impact in how every single company works. And that's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to talk about all those aspects of scaling and skilling low code in your organization. We'll focus on what Microsoft is doing to help, but more importantly, we'll focus on the stories of many customers who are going big with low code in their organizations today. Before we get into it all, though, I'd like to set just a little bit of context for the big picture here. You know, Gartner says that 70% of enterprise software will be developed in low code by, just 3 years from now, by 2025. That is a staggering shift in our industry, a big change in how a lot of us are going to work and operate. And we've got to be ready for it. And it's not just looming sort of distant on the horizon, it's actually happening right now with Microsoft and Power Platform at the forefront. You know, Power Apps specifically is now the most widely used low code application platform on the planet, and continues to grow exponentially every single month. This is something that organizations large and small are taking advantage of. Almost, all of the Fortune 500, 97% of Fortune 500 organizations are using Power Platform today, and not just dabbling, not just one or two apps and solutions, but really going big on what low code can do for their organizations. In fact, 175 of those companies now have 10,000 or more people using just Power Apps every single month. Some of them a lot more than that, an order of magnitude more than that. So this is happening now. Low code is going mainstream now. And what we really have to do is be ready for it. And the question to a lot of people in leadership positions, in IT departments, in any department, frankly, is what's your role in all of this? How do we get engaged and how do we shape the momentum that's happening out there in the market and the capabilities of our workforce to do the most good for our organizations? Because not only do our organizations expect it from a business agility and return perspective, increasingly our employees expect it too. We've done some great data science work in partnership with a couple organizations out there to really look at low-code practitioners and their expectations of their companies. And a staggering amount of them, 84% of them, basically expect their companies to invest in technical skills for their workforce. 84% is a lot more than the typical population of software engineers and developers and technical people inside of a company. This is becoming a really widespread expectation among our workforce. And the inverse is also true. 64% of people say, hey, if my company is not investing in those skills and not investing in these platforms, I don't know if I have a future here. So this really becomes existential for a lot of our organizations, looking at the next generation of our workforce and looking at the next 10 years of how we drive innovation. Now, all of that is also playing out across a really important backdrop in the industry, where there are three converging trends that are really coming to a head and really coming together in the context of low code. And these are all conversations we've been having sort of independently as an industry for the last 5 or 10 years, to the point that some of them almost feel cliche. Everybody knows we have to digitally transform or be left behind by a competitor who will do it for us. And everybody knows that we have to do that without sacrificing trust. Because ending up in the news for the wrong reasons is equally lethal. And so, compliance and security are top of mind for a lot of organizations at the same time as is digital transformation. And the real kicker is we got to do all of this in what is probably the tightest labor market for technical talent that we will see in our lifetimes. So together, these forces of trust and transformation and talent, they can feel like a losing proposition. But that's exactly why low code and low code at scale is critical, because it starts to turn these things around into mutually reinforcing benefits. When I can take a long tail of business processes, of files, of things that have been sitting under people's desks in spreadsheets and rows and columns, or legacy databases, or shadow IT products, one-off point solutions, SaaS things that were brought in by a random department 5 years ago, when I can bring that whole mass of software forward. I can connect it, I can put it on a modern platform that's all integrated into my core identity system and Active Directory, all manageable in the cloud with great rules of governance and security. I'm taking an instant step forward in trust. And when I can do that in a way that is actually up-leveling the capabilities of those underlying systems, adding AI, adding mobile applications, adding enterprise automation, I'm taking a massive step forward in transformation. And I'm doing all of that in a way that does not require a new team of software engineers for every single problem. In fact, I'm turning the entire organization into an innovation engine. So being able to roll out low code at scale is really the way we overcome these challenges of trust and talent and transformation and get to a much better place on the other side. Now, here's the good news. You're not alone. You're not the only organization thinking about how to do this, and you're certainly not alone from a Microsoft perspective either. We are deeply invested, not just in building the technology, but making it easier to adopt and easier to use. So a great starting point is adoption.microsoft.com. We've got great content out there ranging from the high-level strategic, how do we wrap our heads around this and organize for it, all the way down to the low-level, what tools to implement and when and how to take advantage of them, and everything in between. And what you'll find there, if you look through this content, is a framework about how to think about scaling low code across the company. And that's really based on 4 key points. And we'll actually start at the bottom, at the bedrock, the foundation. We got to secure the environment. We got to make sure that we're putting in place the right policies and the right approach to making sure that low code happens in a safe and compliant and reliable way. Now, a lot of that comes out of the box from the product, but every organization is going to be different in how they apply those rules and needs to their unique circumstances. And then on top of that, you got to engage the early adopters, the champions, the people that will set the pace and the tone and inspire everybody else in the company, and get those early wins on the board and those early people engaged in building a community. And from there, then it's scale. It's really about how do I build those skills and increase the learning opportunities for my organization, and then how do I go really big with engagement and make sure that everybody can use what's been built. So this framework is something that we'll spend the rest of the session really thinking through and looking at how Microsoft is investing to accelerate it and also how customers are implementing it. Starting with a real raft of new innovation we've been driving into the product recently. In fact, some of the new features that I'm most excited about are governance features. I don't know that I thought I would say that a few years ago, but it's absolutely true. One of the key things that we've rolled out just this fall is called managed environments for Power Platform. And this is just a major leap forward in how much visibility and control an organization can get with a lot less effort than what historically they had to invest to get that visibility and control. Now just at the flip of a switch, we'll implement best practice data loss prevention policies. We'll give extra granular control over the sharing of apps and other assets in an environment. And we'll set up a whole pipeline of advanced analytics that gives extra long-range visibility and proactive alerting and monitoring over what's going on inside the low-code environment. In fact, these friendly little reminders of, hey, here's an environment with a lot of apps that have been more actively used within the last month. Here's a set of assets that have become inactive within the last 60 days. You might want to clean them up. That type of just guided, proactive help is really critical as we build that solid foundation and scale. But the foundation is just that. It's the foundation, right? And so we got to build on top of it. And that's why we're certainly not slowing down in product innovation. In fact, some of the even newer product capabilities that are rolling out right now start to work in these next layers. How do I embrace my champions, and how do I skill and teach the rest of the organization? I'm really excited to announce two great new capabilities on that front as well. We're launching right now an integrated virtual agent right into Power Apps Maker experiences that brings with it the entire knowledge base of Power Apps and Power Platform. It's armed with all of the documentation, all of the training content, but makes it a really friendly conversational interface with anybody right as they're building their application. So if I get stuck at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, there's a virtual agent there to help me out, and I don't have to go hunt and peck through thousands of pages of documentation to find what I need. But the really special thing about this bot It's not just a bot. It's actually also connected to the champions and maker community inside of my company. And what we'll do is reach out to those individuals who have proven themselves to be successful makers with the right skills for a problem, and actually connect them to other people in the company that need help. And that creates this virtual cycle of a human community helping each other, in addition to AI-driven and automated-driven tools right inside of the product. Where do those champions come from, and how do they get their skills? Well, that's also something we are investing in and innovating behind. And we're really excited about the brand new Power Up program for Power Platform. You know, the real aim of this program is, how do we go create the next million high-skill, low-code developers? And that's exactly what we're doing. We're providing intensive multi-week training courses with certifications on the other side for anybody who wants to raise their hand and apply. So there's a lot of awesome content and energy going into this space, which is really about building up the skills of our workforces and the capabilities to have those champions get into our organizations and go help the rest of the movement take off. So these things all work together. You know, the virtual agent, the maker matching, and the upskilling programs, really come together into a next level experience for makers who are trying to learn. But rather than just tell you about it, I'd love to show you. Let's go take a look. So all of this starts right in Power Apps Studio. This is the interface that millions of people are using today to build apps and build their skills. And the new thing is this virtual agent right in line. So if I'm hitting a problem with a complex expression like the one on the screen, I can start to chat with this bot conversationally to get to the information that I need. And again, all of that knowledge base of documentation and content is right here at my fingertips. I didn't have to go hunt and peck to find it. But we all know that sometimes even then it's not enough, right? We need extra help. And that's where this bot is plugged into my company. It knows, who to talk to and where to go for help. In fact, it's identified specific individuals that I can know and relate to, and in a single click now be chatting with right inside of Microsoft Teams. So that handoff from, an automated assistant into a live human assistant is just really key. Now, how do people become advisors? Well, that's all in product as well. In fact, the people that are showing up in that list are recognized by the product for their skill and ability to build applications that are successful, and then invited right in to say, hey, do you want to help your colleagues as well? And guess what? This can also be done by an admin. Right in the Power Platform Admin Center, I can configure all the links to my resources and communities, and then also configure exactly who is showing up as an advisor and a maker. And then here is the Power Up program, where we really feed that talent pipeline in the first place. Being able to not only get inspired by the success stories of other people that have built their careers, but to apply and get into these programs yourself. That's a really big step up. Anybody can sign up right now today and get plugged into this amazing opportunity to go build your skills and get certified on Power Platform. Now, the exciting part is all of this is just now in the product. The experience of champions and advanced makers, finding each other and finding the people in their organization who need their help. And the experience of those new people starting out, finding content and documentation, it's all just a core part of how Power Platform works. But it's all the baseline. It's all the technology on which the real magic is built, the magic of what customers do with it. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of the session on, is really talking directly to customers and about what customers have done at scale with Power Platform. And to take us through the first part of that journey, we'll go over to April Dunham. April leads our cloud advocacy teams and is personally responsible for building the skills of thousands of people in Power Platform and building relationships with a lot of organizations around that as well. So April, over to you.
Thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone. I'm April Dunham, Principal Cloud Advocate here at Microsoft, and I'm here to talk about scaling and skilling within organizations. Scaling and skilling begins with community. We have a broad and diverse community of over 2.8 million monthly active users in our managed communities, as well as over 500 independent user groups worldwide. Now, in addition to these managed communities, we also have grassroots communities like the Power Addicts. With the Power Addicts, they've become synonymous with the Power Platform community, with thousands of people proudly putting the hashtag Power Addict in their Twitter and social media profiles. And in addition to managed communities that we have and grassroots communities like the Power Addicts, we're seeing communities take off within organizations as well. Many organizations are using these same principles of community for scaling and skilling within their organization. When we look at organizations that are having a lot of success with scaling and skilling internally, there are a few different common principles that these all follow. There's a healthy mix of grassroots efforts and strategically planned rollouts through Center of Excellence teams. Like our public communities, they foster a culture of creativity, innovation, personalization, and of course, fun. They make skilling initiatives, hackathons, meetups, and sharing success stories core principles of their scaling and skilling rollout. Now, a perfect example of this is H&M. With H&M, they've established a Center of Excellence team to create robust governance while also continuing to enable their nurturing and thriving their community of makers. They set up a Yammer group for their maker community to share questions and thoughts. And they also set up a SharePoint site where they could showcase stories of app development. Makers also receive a welcome email anytime they create a new application with helpful links and resources. Another example of this is Telstra. They've had a lot of success with scaling and skilling as well. They have a community initiative called the Power Factory, which has fostered and skilled passionate internal community of makers. They continue to nurture and skill that internal community through their monthly newsletter called Power News. This newsletter helps to inform stakeholders and demonstrates the capability of the platform. Now, another really great example of an organization that's had a lot of success with scaling and skilling is Accenture. I'd love to welcome Karen Odegaard, Managing Director of Technology Platforms at Accenture, to talk about how they've tackled scaling and skilling with their low-code community. Thank you so much for being here today, Karen.
Hi, April. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk to you today.
Same here. So we mentioned earlier that establishing a team is really important for kickstarting internal scaling and skilling community. Can you touch on the role of executive sponsorship for a successful rollout of an internal scaling program?
Yes, I'm lucky enough to be leading our COE team for Power Platform at Accenture. And we started off that journey with sponsorship at very high levels of our organization, which we've seen is needed for success for any digital transformation. So in our case, this was sponsored by our CIO and CTO. We're big advocates for how citizen development could transform our organization, and drove the selection for Power Platform to be that enabler. And so it was really critical to getting the right, funding and business sponsorship in order to drive that change throughout our organization.
So I'd love to hear more about what initiatives that you've rolled out for upskilling. We mentioned earlier that lots of organizations kind of have these same kind of patterns or practices of what they do for skilling. So what do you do at Accenture?
Yeah, we're very similar to our peer group. So we've done several things. So first and foremost is really promote certification. So taking advantage of the training that Microsoft Learning has put out there for Power Platform, and the abilities to obtain different levels of certification. And I really tried to lead by example there by getting my own certification in Power Platform. And it really just helped accelerate how we could build up skills within our organization for Power Platform. Secondly is through campaigns and hackathons. And so we built a destination that we call Power to Everyone. And it really provides all the tools, schools, and rules for being able to develop on Power Platform and a way to incentivize development as well. Thirdly, we created a development community, again, something a lot of our peers are doing, leveraging Yammer to really foster community where developers can learn from each other. And then lastly, even with learning and creating a community, sometimes there are just more complex use cases and more complex questions to be answered. So we created what we call a Power Suite, which is a way for the community to really get connected to our team, that has the most senior developers and most senior skilled people to provide some of the support that they need. And so again, this is the COE team at Accenture. And then that suite also provides the makers with tools in order to manage their platform and help us manage the application lifecycle within the environment. And so those are just some of the ways that we provided support and helped scale up skills within Accenture.
I love, Karen, that you touched on the importance of certification and that you're leading by example by getting your own Power Platform certifications. I think that's a great way to, through these skilling initiatives that you have, to kind of demonstrate that the training that you're putting out there and the investment that you're making is worth it and is working and really helps people advance their careers with those certifications. Now, you touched a little bit too on the governance aspect a little bit and the Power Suite. I also heard something about your use case review board. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yes, as you know, governance is front and center when we're talking about a citizen development journey. And so for us, while we want to be able to thoroughly enable our developers to drive their own digital transformation, we also want to make sure that we can govern and align, the solutions that are being built to our overall organizational strategy and governance. And so considerations like legal and data privacy considerations when you're building an application. And so we created a use case review board so that we can discuss those more complex use cases and figure out how we can enable those use cases on Power Platform, but aligning with the right level of governance. So it really helped us just create patterns when it comes to assessing these use cases that we can apply to use cases in the future. And again, maintain that level of governance while in parallel making sure that we are not blocking the ability to create your own applications within the ecosystem.
That's really important too, especially as you evolve with your Power Platform journey, having that internal board to be able to kind of review these more complex architectures that you might have. So really awesome use case there of the platform. So I want to thank you so much, Karen, for joining us and sharing how Accenture has approached skilling. Now, are there any resources that you'd like to point us to learn more about what Accenture is doing with the Power Platform?
Yeah, you can check out our PowerCat video that's available on YouTube. And then for more about our digital transformation with Power Platform, do check out our credential on Accenture.com.
Thank you so much, Karen, for joining us again.
Thank you.
And if you are looking for more inspiration on how to approach scaling and skilling within your organization, make sure that you check out our Power Platform story site. We have over 100 curated stories of organizations that are successfully implementing the Power Platform. We also have an expertly curated selection of resources on our Power Platform adoption site. We have a lot you can learn there for adoption best practices, maturity models, and more. Now I'll turn it back over to you, Ryan.
Thank you, April, and thank you, Karen. These three stories are some of my favorites. I find myself talking about them with almost every customer I meet. I love how H&M, global retail company, really said, look, everybody's going to become a software innovator. Everybody's going to be able to get this capability. We're going to keep it safe and we're going to keep it responsible and we're going to manage it centrally. And I love how Telstra, really is trying to empower everybody, with the realization that it's the people on the front lines of each of these business units who are most equipped to make people like them more efficient and more effective. And being able to bring those capabilities, to those workforces and support them with technical resources, absolutely critical. And I just love the ambition and the scale of what Karen and her team are doing at Accenture. We're talking tens of thousands of people around the world building these skills, getting these certifications, and really applying this at a whole nother level. It's just super exciting to see what's possible. But we got one more story for you. And this one is a personal story, I will say, on a couple of different levels. This is a story both about the personal journey of an individual who has built these skills. And it's also a personal story for me because these folks are my friends too. In fact, Alan and Georgia at Schlumberger, who we'll hear from next, are part of the Power Platform Champions community. And truly, we are their fans. Here you'll see in the picture, I've got their baseball cards on my desk because what they've been able to do, both individually with their own career journeys, but also in aggregate at this organization is truly transformational. But nobody is more qualified to tell you about it than Georgia and Alan themselves. So let's go over and hear that story. Georgia, over to you.
Thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone. I'm Georgia Tsoraklidou, and I'm the HR Digital Cell Lead for Schlumberger. Today, I'm here to talk about my journey. So in September 2018, I applied for an IT internship with Schlumberger. After many interviews, many different industries, all failed. That was actually my last option before going back to Greece, where I'm from. During that last interview, Alan asked me if I ever used Power Apps or Power BI. And my reply was that, are those Microsoft tools? Because I only know PowerPoint. So 5 hours later, I received an email that I was offered the internship with Alan. That was a life-changing moment for me. Alan spent 2 weeks teaching me all about Power Apps and Power Platform. We built our first apps and automations before he let me fly on my own. And then 9 months later, he came back and said, Georgia, I have some news for you. And he handed me over a new letter of employment with Schlumberger. So then I joined the HSE function, the Health, Safety and Environment, as their digital analyst in 2019. Then in 2020, the pandemic came along. And then was when the HSE team needed solutions in the speed of light, like if not faster than that. And it was then when the value of going digital and using Power Platform instead of the traditional software development route was realized. I built the COVID-19 Schlumberger Safe app in 3 hours, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more shortly. But all this made it possible for me to join another amazing department, the HR, as their digital cell lead this time. So my whole journey in Schlumberger has just been an upskilling journey. What did I learn from it? Well, I'm 4 years with Schlumberger, grew from intern to digital analyst to now a digital cell lead. I've learned all about digital and the Power Platform from Alan and my internship. And that skill can be transferred to any function or business unit. For me, Power Platform created new positions and opened the doors to HSE and HR, where I trained more than 40 HSE and HR professionals to use Power Platform. So this is the amazing thing about Power Platform, that all kinds of professionals in the company can add digital and Power Platform knowledge and skills in their backpack through the online training, through our virtual training or our Lunch and Learn in person, through hackathons and the Power Platform community, and of course, the Microsoft Learn program. So among the ideas, as I told you, was the COVID-19 app during the pandemic to just inform our employees about the pandemic. And then the question came up to me, Georgia, how long will it take to have this up and running? Like, is it 24 hours okay? Because we need it fast. This is priority. So I had to work fast, make it look professional and user-friendly, but also functional in a very limited time. I started reusing some of the components from other apps that I or Alan built in the past to save some time on the UI and the UX, like some colors, some fonts, some formats. So thank you, Alan, for that. 3 hours later, the app was ready. And the only thing remaining was literally adding all the information and making it match visually with the rest of the communication package. 24 hours later, the app was approved and released. And then a few hours after release, the analytics showed 2,000 users already. And Alan pinged me and said, wow, seriously, that's going to be interesting. In less than 20 hours after release, boom, 6,000 users on the first day. And that is why it was recognized by Microsoft as the fastest adopted app worldwide. And it was the template for the crisis communication app that Microsoft built and released to the rest of the world. So today, we have reached about 50,000 employees in the company, and we have translated the app in 10 different languages for non-English speakers. And I want to give a shout out to Caitlin Smith, who has taken over my previous role in HSC and maintaining this app, because there are a lot of changes and the app looks much different, as you can see, from the previous one. And there are new features like the vaccination information and systems, which are the most important ones at the moment. So an app like this needs to be flexible and easy to change, because a pandemic is an ever-changing event. And we must adapt to the new information and what happens in the different parts of the world. This is only possible because of low code and the Power Platform. And I have learned a lot. Power Platform has changed my life. Some people ask me, why do you give so much to your work? Well, I love what I do, and Alan makes it very fun, as fun as possible. So all it takes is that one person, one opportunity to change someone's life. And Power Platform provides the opportunity, and the community provides the support. So go for it. Now I'll turn it over to Alan, who will talk a little bit more about Schlumberger's digital strategy. Over to you, Alan.
Thank you, Georgia. My name is Alan. I'm the Head of Digital Transformation and Innovation for Schlumberger. Today, I'm going to walk you through our low-code journey. We started our low-code journey with Power Platform back in 2018. We started by building up an internal community of citizen makers, and today they are about 8,000 strong. These are employees who, one way or another, has built an app, an automation flow, a dashboard, or chatbot to solve their business challenges. We have about 27,000 Power apps and 47,000 cloud flows. These apps and automation translate into 4 million transactions per day. And this is transaction that used to be done manually, but today has been taken over by those automation. These tenant starts reflect that through low code, we are able to shift a very significant amount of digital tasks during this pre-low code adoption, which would have been a huge resource burden on IT organization. With the industry continuing to be challenged by cost optimization for IT spend, low code came into the scene at the right time. There's a continued appetite for digitalization within the business, and with low code, we are able to balance the demand versus dollar spend. In Schlumberger, as part of our digital execution strategy, we have a digital delivery layer called digital sales. They are made up of dedicated resources embedded in the business, funded by the business. They are normally personas who are digital savvy, and they are personas from the business like HR, supply chain, finance, and more. And these are people who have capacity to take on new skill sets. We pair these resources with training programs to learn about low code, like Power Platform. And they're trained to use low code to solve business challenges. We designed the delivery organization to include this distributed model for a few reasons. One of which is to encourage innovation at the edge of the business. We want the people who are sitting close to the business, who face the operation, who understand the daily pain points, to be able to come out with solutions that work for them. Very often, I was asked, how do you identify scenarios for low code? We have a global process for intakes of all business projects to IT. Within the process, we have a decision tree that guides us based on the complexity of the scenarios, the data types, the integration required with other systems, and the scope of the audience. This decision tree then guides our user to determine whether this scenario is suitable for self-service by citizen developers, or should it go to a dedicated digital sales, or should it go to a digital studio to handle much more complex solutions. This decision tree mapping is also well designed and explained between our digital playbook to ensure that everyone in the organization who wants to build digital solution are aligned with the same common way of building apps, dashboard solution, and doing it right at the first time. In a more recent development, we started to leverage a new model where partnership between digital cell and the studio brings in added advantage to the delivery model. We put the business team, the digital cell, to work together with the pro code team, digital studios, on delivering a solution. The digital cell gather the requirements and then discuss with the architect in the cell, and with the help of our UX designer, with the pro code in terms of wireframing and the architecture by our technical architect. This then secure the backend data access in that hours by our security teams. And then at the end of the chain, digital cell put the app front end based on the recommendation, and then connects it to the corporate information model and apply the required access control. Digital cell then also takes this final product and works and sit with the business to push it and deploy to the intended audience. This fusion team model is working very well for us, and it is super effective because not only is the app is properly designed, but it also has a very high pro-grade UI and sound data layer. We also find that this model very often gives us a very high level of user satisfaction and fulfilling the requirements. And with that, back to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Georgia, and thank you, Alan. And wow, just the scale of what that organization has been able to accomplish. Thousands of makers, tens of thousands of automated processes and brand new applications that never existed before. Just that pace of innovation, all possible because of people and because of the culture that they've put in place to go, create a career path for somebody like Georgia. Be able to come in without technical training and skills and become so impactful in such a short amount of time, and then repeat that over and over and over again. Truly an inspiration to the rest of us. And we've seen 4 great inspirations today, 4 great examples of applying this framework in a repeatable way. Start with that strong and stable and secure foundation. Identify the champions and the early adopters, the Georgias of the world, and make them successful, and then really take that to the next level of scale. Help everybody in the organization learn and get engaged in what's possible. This is a framework that has worked, really effectively, not just for H&M and Telstra and Accenture and Schlumberger, but really for hundreds and thousands of others like them around the world. And most importantly, it can work for you too. The real question is not how did they do it? The real question is how will you apply it next? And that's what we're very excited about. So really this is about going all in. Check out the adoption resources we've got posted. Check out the features inside of the product to help with individual learning journeys. Get engaged with the Power Up program, apply for the training courses, and really get plugged in to the broader Power Platform community. The next few years are going to be massive in this space and massive for what we can all do inside of our organizations. And I, for one, can't wait to see what you're able to do with all of this. Thank you very much.